Welcome, dear students. In this session, we are going to discuss one of the most interesting, loving, and very long ode written by P.B. Shelley. P.B. Shelley was one of the younger romantic poet. He was a he was born in 1792 in Sussex. He was a great rebellion and revolutionary poet of the younger romantic poets. He craved for the liberty and freedom of the human being in most of his poems. He was also died very young, like the other younger romantic poets like Lord Byron and Keats. As well as, interestingly, he also died in Italy like the other younger romantic poets like Lord Byron and John Keats. Now, before we are going to discuss the poem, we want to discuss about the form, that is ode. What is ode means? As the title of the poem is Ode to the West Wind. So before we would like to discuss the poem in detail, now we would like to ask about what is ode. So an ode is a lyric poem, typically one in the form of an address to a particular subject, written in a varied or irregular meter. So actually ode was a classical poem of a kind originally meant to be sung. Generally ode is written for the singing, for the purpose of it is nothing but a song which can be sung. So it is a lyric poem, and it has varied in a, or it is in a irregular meter. So now we would like to discuss about the poem Ode to the West Wind. So now I would like to recite the poem. Just look at the poem, dear students. Then we will discuss the poem in detail. O wild west wind, thou breath of atoms being, thou from whose unseen presence the leaves dead are driven like ghosts from an enchanter fleeing, yellow and black and pale and hectic red, pestilence stricken multitudes, O thou who chariotest to their dark wintry bed the winged seeds, where they lie cold and low, each like a corpse within its grave, until thine azure sister of the spring shall blow her clarion over the dreaming earth and fill with living hues and odors, plain and hill, wild spirit, which art moving everywhere, destroyer and preserver, here, oh, here. Yes, dear students, throughout the poem, here the speaker is nothing but the poet. The poet directly addresses the west wind, and he describes and admires the west wind. He calls, he he drags the attention of the west wind. So that is why, oh, listen to me, oh, hear to me. He repeatedly asks the west wind to listen to him, to him, to hear his words. And now we will discuss the first cantos of the poem. So, in the first stanza of the poem, the poet says, "You, the unruly west wind," the poet calls it as the wild wind. The wind has the here in the poem, the wind is not ordinary, it is the wild wind, it is unruly west wind, it has a lot of power with it, it is uncontrollable, it is unruly. So, are the essence of the fall, you are invisible, but you scatter the fallen leaves. So, west wind is responsible for west. If you look at the wind, wind is invisible, wind is not visible. So, you scatter the fallen leaves, you are responsible for scattering of the fallen leaves on the earth. They look like ghosts running away from a witch or wizard. ನಾವು ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಇದನ್ನು ಸುಂಟರ ಗಾಳಿ ಅಂತ ಕರಿಬೋದು. ಆ ಸುಂಟರ ಗಾಳಿಯ ಸಂದರ್ಭದಲ್ಲಿ ಎಲೆಗಳು, ಗಿಡಗಳು, ಮರ, ಗಾಳಿ, ಧೂಳು ಹೇಗೆ ಅದು ಸುಂಟರ ಗಾಳಿ ಸುಳಿದು ಸುಳಿದು ಹೇಗೆ ಮೇಲಕ್ಕೆ ತೆಗೆದುಕೊಂಡು ಹೋಗಿ ವಸ್ತುಗಳನ್ನು ಕೆಳಕ್ಕೆ ಬಿಡುತ್ತೆ, ಅದು ನಾವು ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಅಥವಾ ನಮ್ಮ ಹಳ್ಳಿ ಭಾಷೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಅದನ್ನು ದೆವ್ವ ಗಾಳಿ, ದೆವ್ವದ ಗಾಳಿ ಅಂತ ಕೂಡ ಕರಿತೇವೆ. ಸೊ ಹಿಯರ್ ದ poet's feeling is also universe. The poet also calls west wind as a ghost, or it may be having a witch. The leaves are yellow and black. See, what are all the leaves it takes into its see, look at the poem. Look at what he says: yellow and black, white and wild red, all every different colors of the leaves. It will not leave, it will take everything whichever comes to its nearness and dearness. They look like crowds of sick people. See here, the poet uses the personification here. See, they look like crowds of sick people. Even the west wind takes the leaves like whatever the color it may be, having. So, you carry the seeds as if you are the chariot. You take the seeds, you take the leaves, you take the seeds, if as if you are their chariot, you are the messenger. You take everything, you take all the flowers, leaves, seeds like their chariot. He again uses the personification down to the earth where they will sleep all winter. They lie there cold and humble like dead bodies in their graves, until your blue sister, the spring wind, blows her trumpet and wakes up the earth. See, soon after the wind, after the death of the leaves, there will be a spring. Spring is responsible for the renewal, rebirth of the seeds, budding of the flowers, as well as ripening. Autumn season will be the season which is responsible for the ripening of the fruits, budding of the flowers, growth of the vegetables. In the same way, here the poet calls the west wind as the preserver and destroyer, because west wind is responsible for the decay, death of the flowers, as well as, in other words, the west wind is also responsible for the renewal, rebirth of the seeds, rebirth of the flowers, leaves, trees, and everything which is which gets life on the earth, that is all because of the west wind. He also calls it as a blue sister. Again he made use of the personification here. Then she brings out the buds. They are like flocks of sheep. They feed in the open air, and she fills the meadows and the hills with sweet smells and beautiful colors. Unruly west wind, as I told you in the beginning, the wind is uncontrollable. The poet calls it as wild west wind. It is wild, it is not domestic, it is very cruel, it is wild, it is undomestic. So he calls it as unruly wind, moving everywhere. You are both an exterminator and a savior. As I told you, the poet directly addresses the wind as if the wind is a preserver as well as the destroyer. Preserver because he preserves the seeds, leaves, fruits, and flowers, birds, nuts for the next generation, for the next season, as well as he also destroys through his west cruel, unruly wind. So he directly addresses the west wind. That is why he repeatedly asks the west wind to listen to his words. Please listen to me. So now we would like to discuss the second canto of the poem. Thou on whose stream, mid the steep sky's commotion, loose clouds like earth's decaying leaves are shed, shook from the tangled boughs of heaven and ocean, angels of rain and lightning. There are spread on the blue surface of thine airy surge, like the bright hair uplifted from the head of some fierce Maenad, even from the dim verge of the horizon to the zenith's height, the locks of the approaching storm, thou dirge of thy dying year, oh, to which this closing night will be the dome of a vast sepulchre, vaulted with all thy congregated might of vapors, from whose solid atmosphere black rain and fire and hail will burst. Oh, here! Yes, dear students, in the second stanza, in the second canto of the poem, he says, in the high and whirling reaches of the sky. So, how you might have seen the wind, how it whirls, how it goes to the heights of the sky. You send the clouds twirling, so you form. The west wind is responsible for the formation of the clouds, and they look like dead leaves shaken loose from the branches of the heavens and the sea. It will not let anything whichever comes to its nearness. So they are like angels full of rain and lightning. So west wind is responsible for the formation of clouds that leads to the lightning and rain. So the rain is responsible, which results for the birth, rebirth of the vegetables, rebirth of the leaves, rebirth of the trees, plants, and the greenery on the earth. So that is why the poet calls it as a preserver. Or they are scattered across the blue sky like the blonde hair of a wildly dancing girl who is a follower of Dionysus. Okay, in the next line he says he the west wind scatters everything to the blue sky, to that much of height, like the blonde hair of a wildly dancing girl. Again he made use of the personification here to the wind. The clouds stretch from the horizon to the top of the sky like the hair of the coming storm. So, how the clouds stretch? They stretch from the horizon to the top of the sky like the hair of the coming storm. West wind, you sad song of the end of the year. It west wind looks like the decay, the death of the end of the year. But again, there is a promise, there is a spirit of the rebirth. The night will be like the dome of a vast tomb. The clouds you gathered like archways running across it, and from the solid top of the tomb, dark rain, lightning, and hail will fall down. Listen to me. So, again, the poet repeatedly he drags the attention of the wild wind. Listen to me. He directly addresses the west wind. So now we will stop. Now we will stop the discussion and we will discuss the remaining cantos in our next class, dear students.